Hello, everyone. My name is Sally Logan Walker, and I welcome you to the series NOKELive at Roanoke College as presented by the Roanoke College Alumni Association. I serve the college as the Director of Alumni and Donor Relations, and it's a pleasure here today to host this event. Today, we will be taking a look at a very unique program for the college called the Inside Out Exchange Project. Before I introduce our guest speaker and others, I would like to cover just a couple logistics. This event is being recorded and will be available later this week on this Roanoke College Alumni YouTube channel for future viewing. You can use the chat feature at any point to ask questions or even just provide comments to us via the YouTube chat feature. So feel free to use that at any time and we will address questions as we are able. So today we are joined by the creator and lead faculty member of the Inside Out Project, Dr. Daisy Ball. Dr. Ball is assistant professor and coordinator of the Criminal Justice Program at in the Department of Public Affairs at Roanoke College. She is a 2003 graduate of Roanoke College, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology. She later obtained both a Master's in Science and her doctorate in Sociology at Virginia Tech. Dr. Ball has authored and co-authored numerous books, publications, and conference papers on topics related to race, criminal justice, Asian American studies, and education. In 2019, Dr. Ball launched the Inside Out Prison Exchange Program at Roanoke County Jail. Today, she and others she's invited to join her will share more about the program. So now it is my pleasure to turn it over to Dr. Daisy Ball.
Thank you, Sally. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks to all for tuning in. And a special thanks to all the students who are joining us today, current and former students who are joining us today, even though it is a holiday break. So I'm going to just briefly introduce each of the guests that we have with us. Then I'm going to go over the basics of the program, including logistics, program mission, etc., so that audience members understand how this program functions. And then I'll ask each of the students and former students who are on the call with us today to speak about their own unique experiences with the program. The students are really the heart of the program, and so it's them that we want to hear from. And then finally, near the end of the event, we'll have time for question and answer, because I'd love to hear what questions those of you viewing have for us. So let's see, I'd like to introduce first Christine. So Christine is an international relations major and a senior. We have Gwen, who is a 2020 grad and currently second lieutenant in the Marine Corps. We have Hannah, who is a criminal justice major and senior. We have Max, who is a poli-sci and criminal justice double major and senior at Roanoke. We have Spencer, who I believe will be joining our call soon. When others are speaking, I may check in with him. He is a former Roanoke County Jail resident, and he currently works for Roanoke County Parks and Recreation. We have Richard, who is a PhD candidate at UMass Amherst and a former student of mine in earlier iterations of the program. And we also are expecting Brooke to join us. She is a criminal justice major and senior here. So I want to begin by just explaining what Inside Out is. First and foremost, and if we can get to the next slide, please. So Inside Out is a national program. It was founded originally at Temple University in 1997 by a woman named Lori Pompa. She experienced what I experienced insofar as taking criminal justice students on field trips to correctional facilities, but never feeling quite sound with how that experience went. I know that I've taken students on numerous field trips or visits to jails and prisons in the local area. And while this has been interesting for us, it's always had a bit of a voyeuristic feel. So she felt that too. She said, how could we have more of a sustained interaction with incarcerated populations over a period of time? and also offer them academic content. And the result of that desire was the Inside Out Prison Exchange Program. So Inside Out brings traditional college students, who we refer to as outsiders, together for semester-long learning with people that we refer to as insiders, who are incarcerated individuals. Next. So the mission of Inside Out is essentially to foster social change. The pedagogy is unique. I've learned more about being a college instructor from teaching in a prison setting than I've learned in all of my other years of college teaching. It causes you to kind of rethink your entire curricular design, your pedagogical approach, and it causes you to rethink the relationship between faculty and student and how it's a reciprocal learning experience, not just a top-down, passing along of information to a passive population. Inside Out has a number of goals, or it functions in a number of ways. I'll highlight just two. For outsiders, it exposes many of our students, quite a few of whom, as you heard in the introduction, are criminal justice majors. These people are exposed to the realities of incarceration. So they experience it in a more firsthand way than they're able to through reading in a textbook or a journal article, or through the aforementioned prison field trip that I noted. At the same time, it exposes insiders both to academic content and to pro-social interactions with college students. And although we can't assume that all insiders have never taken a college class, that's the case for many of the students in the class, and it allows them a chance at trying on college education with perhaps the hopes or interest at pursuing it in the future. So just a little bit about how one gets into this in terms of the faculty side of things. So I was interested in this program. I had learned of it from a colleague of mine when I taught back in Boston. And so in order to become certified, you have to go through a rigorous 7-day training. And so mine took place in Oregon, at Oregon State Penn in 2013. And so what was interesting about this experience is that my instructors were inmates or insiders themselves. They were people who had been students in Inside Out classes, and they then developed a curriculum to teach future instructors how to do Inside Out. One of the things that I learned from them, and I think the biggest takeaway from that training experience, was the fact that they insisted that the academic content be just as rigorous in the Inside Out classes as it is in any other class that I offer in my traditional on-campus courses. Their concern was that faculty would enter into this kind of work with a kind of feel-good, wanting to help attitude, but therein they would dumb down the curriculum. And they said, absolutely not, don't do that. And the insiders will know if you're doing that. So don't even try it, because you won't get away with it. And I have found that to be true. The insiders are incredibly sharp. So since receiving my training, I've established Inside Out programs at 4 different correctional facilities. One, a maximum security women's prison outside of Boston. The second, a pre-release facility associated with that women's prison. So a place where people in the 6 months to 3 years before release, they work on training, education, vocation, that sort of thing, so that they have a healthy re-entry into society. A jail in that county, and then finally the Roanoke County Jail. And so the Roanoke County Jail is where the program is currently hosted, and where we have a collaboration with Roanoke College and Roanoke County. And that will be the focus of what we talk about today. I've taught a range of Inside Out classes, everything from social deviance to families to juvenile justice. And I've also supervised approximately 10 courses taught by my colleagues. And so it's important for me to note at this point that, while much of what you'll be hearing about today is learning that's taken place in the context of a criminal justice class, that's not the only sort of class that can be offered through this program. Aside from classes that require high-level, technical features in a lab sort of situation, or internet access, or what have you, aside from that, pretty much any class can be offered through the Inside Out model, so long as the faculty member is flexible and creative. So I've been very fortunate, and I'm quite appreciative of Sheriff Orange and his staff at the Roanoke County Jail for hosting this program. When I first got to Roanoke College, when I entered the faculty here, I spoke with colleagues and administrators on campus about their interest in the program. They showed a strong interest. I then approached Sheriff Orange, and he likewise was totally on board. And he and his staff have made our experience of entering the jail each week quite pleasant and quite smooth. So the way that this works currently is that 10 Roanoke College students join 10 Roanoke County Jail insiders at the jail for class. The class meets once a week and meets on Fridays, roughly from 1 to 4. And everybody who completes the course receives course credit. We have a quite a nice ceremony at the end, near the end of the semester, where each student who's completed the course receives a certificate of completion. And that not only is a recognition of their hard work, but it also signifies the end of the class for that semester. Next, please. So I'm going to talk about how students are selected for the course, and then I'm going to turn things over to Max, who's going to talk about how students actually prepare for the class. And then we will hear from individual members of the call about their own experiences. So as you can imagine, this is a popular class. At Roanoke College, it was popular. At my previous school, it was popular. A lot of students want to take the class. But you can also imagine that the setting and the nature of this experience is sensitive. So we have a very careful vetting and selection process that students have to go through. I have a hand in the process of selecting outsiders. I have less say in the process of selecting insiders. So students who are interested on the traditional side, the outsider side, Roanoke College students, they apply for the class through an application process that's advertised the semester before the class is offered. I then work with my student intern, my Inside Out intern, to vet the applications, and we invite the 10 strongest applicants for interviews. Let me explain the intern role briefly. I know others will be talking about that. The intern is a position that I was able to develop after teaching Inside Out my first semester back in Boston. I realized that for the faculty member, being an Inside Out instructor is incredibly rewarding, but also can feel overwhelming at times, simply because you're not seeing half of your students except for once a week. You don't have any contact via email or phone or in person with them for that 1 week span. And so if they have questions, which they undoubtedly do about the class, their work, complications, etc. When you see them each week, it really helps to have a student intern there to help navigate those questions, distribute materials, lead class discussions, vet course materials the semester before, and so forth. And so you'll hear from several interns today. Now, when it comes to selecting the insiders, the jail staff selects them. I can sometimes indicate to the staff what I'm most interested in terms of students, but they take part in that process with little interaction from me. I will say that currently at Roanoke County, the things that are considered most strongly are sentence length. So how long is the insider going to be in the facility for, and behavioral record. And so only people with stellar behavioral records are selected. In a jail population, of course, people are housed in jails for much shorter sentences than they are in prisons. In Boston, when I was at the women's maximum security prison, I had numerous lifers take the class with me. So we didn't need to consider sentence length, right? But at the Roanoke County Jail, I might have an individual who only has 4 months left of his sentence. And so therefore, I need to make sure that matches up with the beginning and end of the class. So I'd like to now turn it over to Max, who will talk about how students prepare for this experience.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Ball, and everybody for being here and being part of this event. So how do students prepare for the Inside Out program? It begins with, as Dr. Ball mentioned earlier, an application process that's not too, but rather rigorous. And it gives you a vague understanding of whether or not you think you'll fit into the program. Secondly, also aforementioned by Dr. Ball, we have an interview that is coordinated by not only Dr. Ball, but the interns as well. And this vaguely gives you an idea, I think, when you're asked questions like, how comfortable do you think you're going to be in this facility? What strengths are you going to bring? That already starts to sort of help you decide how comfortable that you're going to be in the course. And then probably the most important aspect of how students decide whether or not they'd like to be a part or how they're selected is the full orientation experience. And it's important to note that both groups of students receive that full orientation experience. So the Inside Out outsiders, we received a jail orientation along with a Inside Out orientation, and the insiders receive an Inside Out orientation. This involves a full tour of the facility for the outsiders. So that gives you an idea of whether or not, how comfortable you're going to be if you're going to be in that facility for 3 hours every Friday. Can you handle an hour-long tour? And both do a very good job of making sure that students have a good idea of what to expect inside the classroom, and so therefore end up breaking down a lot of barriers in the long run. And essentially, the selection process is a lot less it's a lot less administrative than it sounds, in terms of you decide how comfortable you are and you decide what strengths you want to bring along with the insiders. Everybody has that decision to make.
Great, thank you, Max. Yeah, so we are fully oriented by the time the class starts. There's a lot of anticipation, and we go over the rules ad nauseum, but this is incredibly important, of course, because we have to make sure everybody understands kind of the parameters of the program, rules of the facility, etc. And what's interesting, and Richard can attest to this, but what's interesting is that from facility to facility, the rules and regulations change. And within facilities, the rules and regulations are variously enforced. So for example, if we're coming through security and there's a strict dress code, right, that we have to follow, one day, what I'm currently wearing would be perfectly fine. But then the next day, a correctional officer might take issue with, I'm wearing a piece of jewelry that's not allowed, or the size of a heel of a shoe is too high, or what have you. So one of the things I think we all learn through this experience is dealing with, is being flexible within the context of the institution. And I think that's a skill that many students then go on, to foster in their further academic and or work-related fields. So now I'd like to hear from the students themselves. They're who we're most interested in. Unfortunately, I have not been able to connect with Spencer for his portion of today's talk. So we'll start with Max, if he's there. And I want to hear from Max, Richard, and Brooke. Brooke also may not be able to join us, but I want to hear from Max and Richard about their experiences as both students and interns in the program. And then I'll go on and ask Christine, Hannah, and Gwen to speak about what it was like to be a student, and they'll share anecdotes, funny stories, what have you. So Max, if you could tell us a little bit about what your experience was like, that would be great.
Sure. So I was in Inside Out program as a student just last year, and I have been this semester so far working as an intern for the program. This experience has been heavily affected by COVID-19, so I'm sure Richard's experience is quite different than mine. This has been unfortunate, of course. I was very disappointed in Dr. Ball, along with myself and many others were disappointed to hear that the program would be suspended until the safety of everyone is guaranteed, but I think that we all can agree that that's probably for the best. So as an intern and as people working on the program, Dr. Ball and I, our work has been obviously less in class and more internal. So, although it's unfortunate we can't have the course at the college, we have taken the opportunity to take advantage of the time off and focus on internal program development. This includes looking at better advertisement and PR for the program, more formal internal organization, and goals like creating self-assessment surveys for students and oncoming professors to see how comfortable they might feel with the course. So overall, although it's been unfortunate that I can't be inside the jail every week working with students and professors, I have been able to work with Dr. Ball outside of the classroom on internal program development, and we can only hope that that will further better the program for the experience and everybody else in the future.
Great, thank you, Max. And yeah, so we've had to get creative, and we don't know when we'll be able to enter the facility again, right? Of course, institutionalized populations are not allowed visitors at this point, and we'll see moving forward. My hope is that in fall of next year, we'll be able to regain entry. So if we could hear now from Richard, that would be great.
Hello. Just a warning, my internet has not been great. I hope it'll stick through well. But yeah, so I was a student of Dr. Ball back in 2014 when she was just starting up at with this program at Framingham State, and I had the ability to be an intern. And I'll be talking a little more about the long-term things because that was back, 6 years ago, and now I'm a PhD candidate at UMass Amherst, as she said earlier. So the experience to be able to be an intern in this really affected me in a lot of different ways. One of the big ways was it really helped spark my passion for teaching, as well as gave me an opportunity to kind of put into practice some of those skills in a very unique environment. That very unique experience has really helped me in terms of I was able to share it with my class when I was teaching my own class on mass incarceration. I was able to talk about the experience of going into prison, the visiting, and how classes work there. It's also really impacted my research interests. So even though I'm a medical sociologist, I do a lot of work in the field of criminal justice, especially where medical sociology and criminology or criminal justice system intersect. It, of course, also helps, I'm sure, with the graduate application in a lot of ways. So yeah, it really helped in a lot of ways. And one of the things that has always really stood out to me is back in 2014, that same semester that we did the course, I heard a quote that someone said that education at its best is transformative. And that very much, I think, very much describes this program and how I've seen it work. So after participating in one of the courses, I occasionally would visit some of the end of semester presentations. They would end, instead of a final paper, they would end with a presentation. And I would attend those. And I was always amazed at how some of the insider students, one in particular, began very shy and very unsure of themselves. But then, after taking a couple of these classes, they became very, confident, very, confident in themselves, as well as their intellect, their work, and everything. And that was really amazing to be able to see. And then also, just in terms of the longevity of the system this program, as Professor Ball said, many other professors at the institution wanted to be part of this, and I keep in touch with some of my old professors, and one of them, who was a philosophy professor, we still talk sometimes about how amazing the program is and the experiences that it's given. So yeah, it's definitely a very unique and transformative experience.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I'll just add to something Richard said, which is, you might imagine that bringing these two populations together would be kind of a rocky experience or what have you, but I'm sure some of the students will speak to this as well. The group tends to meld very, very quickly. And as an instructor, were it not for the fact that some of the papers are handwritten and others are typed, I would not be able to, if you remove the names from each paper, I would not be able to tell you whose paper was an insider's or whose was an outsider's, because the quality of work is that high. Everyone in the class wants to do a good job, they're in for the experience, and they're fully committed. And it's at that moment that we're able to come together as this committed group, and the work surpasses my expectations across the board. And I also would say, if you were an observer of the class, except that some of us are wearing jumpsuits and others of us are wearing civilian clothing, you wouldn't be able to tell who the insiders were from the outsiders. And observing that is really awe-inspiring. So thanks, Richard. I'd like to hear now from Christine.
So I participated in the Inside Out program in the spring of 2019. And if I'm correct, I think that was the first semester it happened at Roanoke College, and I had an overall very amazing experience. And while I'm not a criminal justice major, and it doesn't seem initially that it has any relation to IR, It does, because working in IR, you need to be able to handle a lot of different perspectives and interact with a lot of different people. And as already echoed by Richard and Dr. Ball, the insiders are brilliant, honestly. We had many different projects working with them, and one of my favorites was the one-on-one reading partners project that we did. And my partner and I, we at first weren't super excited about our book. It was about a babysitter in France. We couldn't really see the connection to it, to the class, because we were doing self topics on criminology. And lo and behold, after about 2 weeks of reading the book, we came back to meet on the third week, and we're just gushing to each other about how we're now weeks ahead of the readings. We finished the book. It was so wild. And we had so many awesome discussions. Prior to this, I was reviewing some of my reflection papers, and one of the common things I wrote in them was that the insiders just have brilliant discussions. And honestly, they're very engaged with the material. They can bring up points that I would have never considered, and I know my classmates didn't consider, and just encouraging amazing discussions. And overall, I would really encourage students, even if they're not criminal justice majors, to consider taking the course. And even if you can't find a connection to what you study, just take it for the experience.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. I really like that. And I think that, we're all human beings, and communication is key, right? And social interaction is key. And if nothing else, you walk away from it with a much deeper understanding thereof. So let's hear from Hannah now.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about how Inside Out has kind of experienced me past the end of the class. So for me, it was more than just a semester-long class. It's really been an experience that I've already talked about a lot in my life, and I know I'm going to continue talking about. I met a lot of wonderful people, insiders and outsiders, that helped change my perspective and kind of opened my mind about some different things. And this is the second chance I've had to talk about this class. Last fall, I was able to talk about it with Dr. Ball and some other students at a Mill Mountain coffee shop, and now this webinar. And I really just like to be able to tell people about the experience. I wrote my personal statement for law school about this class. My Honors 300 group recently completed our final project, and we based it off of the Inside Out program. And I just love being able to have conversations with people who've never heard about the program, and then they get to hear my experience, and they're so much more interested and they want to learn more. And it's really great to see that. And I've just gotten so much more out of this class than really any other class I've taken, because it's not just knowledge that you're gaining, but it really is an experience. You're making a lot of great connections. And I really have nothing but positive things to say about this program. And I'm really glad that Roanoke has made the effort to allow this program to stick around, because it's a really great experience for students to have.
Great, thank you so much, Hannah. And I'd love to hear from Gwen now.
Hi all. So I wanted to share a little bit more of an anecdote from the class. When I had first gotten into the class, I was super stoked. I was a criminal justice and sociology double major, so it fit right in that gap where it kind of hit both of my fields, and I was, all ready to jump on board. When we had gotten to the prison or the jail, it was kind of a crazy experience in that, like Dr. Ball was saying earlier, we felt like we were part of the class instead of kind of just looking in. And that meant a lot to me because we got to know the insiders very, very well. I started out with one partner who eventually left the jail. So about halfway through the class, I had to switch partners. But given that the insiders have a little bit more time and they're only taking the one class, they had the ability to kind of catch up. And it was super amazing to see that because, with their ability to just put 110% into this class, their work came out so beautiful and just really able to touch all of us. And I know that we all had experiences that we will remember forever. And Hannah and Max were in class with me, and I think I can say that it probably will make you giggle when I bring up sheeple theory. But this class was definitely a point in my Roanoke College time that I don't think I'll ever forget. And we've talked to a lot of the insiders at the end of the class, and they were all very grateful for the experience. And I think as outsiders, we were even more grateful for that experience because it changed our perspective on not only incarceration, but just the people that are in jail and that they are coming out, and that we had a part in that. And hopefully, when they do come out, they're going to be, productive members of society, and that we all had a hand in that. So I'm very grateful that Dr. Ball started this program, because I think it's definitely a huge step, not only for Roanoke College, but the Roanoke community as well.
Yeah, thank you, Gwen. A quick question, since you have since graduated from Roanoke College, what piece of the program have you taken with you, or have you observed, or has come to mind when you've been out in the field as a professional?
So I am a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps. So I don't really deal with a lot of jail or prison populations, but I have done a little bit of side work, if you will. We have a program with our local SPCA that offers inmates to come and walk dogs and help take care of the puppies and all of that. And I've kind of seen a similar effect in that when they get a chance to just be around you and show you that they're such a great person, and that, one mistake or anything that has happened to them does not define them as a person. I think that it really opens your eyes, and it shows you that, one mistake does not define your existence, and you have the ability to be an amazing person. And I think in doing that volunteer work, and as well as, being in the Inside Out program, it was a really great comparison. And I think they both do really great work for the community.
Okay, thank you. So I want to double check. We don't have Spencer with us. Is that correct? Okay, so it's critically important, or crucially important to me, that we have both an outsider's and an insider's take or perspective on the program. That's what this program is all about, is that we're all peers, we're all human beings, and we're all peers for that 3 hours a week every Friday. So I'm not sure. I've messaged him and I haven't heard back, so I hope everything is okay. But I know that Max worked very closely with Spencer on a project, and so maybe Max could speak a little bit about their work as a way of offering some perspective, and hopefully Spencer will be able to join in the next few minutes.
Hey, yeah, sorry if I'm fumbling around. I'm getting out some papers from our course together. So I worked, so I'm gonna try to speak, but not overspeak on Spencer's behalf here. I worked with Spencer. I believe he was a student before I was in the class, and then he became an intern, right, when I was in the course, right? So then as part of the course, and I believe one of the other speakers mentioned this, we have as part of Dr. Ball's course, at least, we had a reading project in which insiders and outsiders would read a book together, which, yes, that sounds just as complicated as it is. We only see each other once a week for 3 hours. Read a book together and get a presentation going, and that we would present at the end of our, which we ended up actually presenting at the end of our course in front of, I believe, Sheriff Orange, Dr. Richardson, and some other people from the college. And in working with Spencer, I found one of the most meaningful relationships I have ever had in academics, period. Spencer was probably just as, if not more motivated than I was every day. I think we were a good pair because we were both pretty hyped up. We both kept a good smile on our faces. We were both very determined. And so we were given the assignment of a book by Simon Singer. And I'm sorry, it's escaping me, but I cannot remember the title. I know that sounds terrible, but it's a book on relo youth. It's essentially addressing relational modernity and all of the concepts from the book. I would Google it real quick, but I don't have a webcam, so I'm using my phone, so bear with me here. But Spencer and I had, a very limited compared to, it's a good template, our relationship, and that project is a good template for the limitations of Inside Out and how they're really broken down as we work towards the course. So if, I'm not going to lie, about a day before we were supposed to present, Spencer and I, to the class, we had just, like, pretty much both of us just finished reading the book and getting together what we would like to say. So we had to, outside of class over the course of a week, figure out what we were going to present, and then meet up. And we had maybe 15 or 20 minutes, if we were lucky, to get that presentation together. And I was terrified, absolutely terrified. But I think what got me through it is that when I showed up to class that day, Spencer was lit, like just lit up. Like he had full confidence. And I think that immediately transferred to me. I picked up on that and I was like, you know what? He's fully confident that we're going to be able to do this. I should have the same mindset. And you pick up on all those sort of instances occur in relationships between insiders and outsiders, and outsiders and outsiders, and insiders and insiders all throughout the course. And despite our fear in presenting, Spencer and I got an A on our presentation, and I don't know how, but we did a very good job of doing it. So even though Inside Out has a very limited, can seem very limited, the experience in working with each other and working with people who have been working with other outsiders and insiders is paramount. And there really are no great words to describe how much of an impact that kind of relationship can have on your future academic choices and careers. I think for both Spencer and I both.
Great, thank you, Max. Yeah, I think you put it really well. And we, being committed to the experience, that's something we go over at great length in orientation, is what causes the experience to be so rich for so many of us. So thanks for sharing that perspective with Spencer in mind. So let's see, I think now we'd love to get questions from viewers.
Sure. So we have questions coming in via the chat feature on YouTube as well as email. And I'm just going to start with an easy one, I think. Is there a certain academic year that outside students, Roanoke College students, tend to take the course?
Yeah, I would say that they tend not to take it as freshmen, but that sophomore, junior, or senior, all of those work, so long as the student has the room in their schedule. It is time consuming insofar as you're committed on a Friday afternoon, which tends not to be very popular for students as a time to take classes. So you're committed to that. You may, not get to start your weekend quite as early as you'd like. But as long as you are confident in being a college student and you've kind of got the routine underway, then you'd be great to apply for the class. And several of the students mentioned it today, but if you're not a criminal justice major, no big deal. There are classes that are non-CJ that are offered through the program at Roanoke. And there also is the opportunity, as Christine mentioned, to take the class just simply for the experience, even if you don't think the academic content parallels with your major in the way that most of your other classes would.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a question that's come from Lindsay Camille Nance on YouTube. And she asked, what feedback have you gotten from the insiders regarding the program?
So I'll start, and then I'd love to hear from the others in terms of what they remember. So I would begin by saying that many of the insiders expressed trepidation upon first entering the program. But by and large, by the end, midway to the end of the program, they are expressing great appreciation, but also great levels of enhanced confidence in themselves and a strengthening of bonds between them and the other students in the class. So not only does it strengthen the bonds between insiders and outsiders, but also insider to insider. I think there's this misnomer that if you're in jail, you know everyone. Well, that's not the case. You don't have relationships with everyone. You may be in one pod segregated from other members of the facility. And so in many cases, when we do orientations, just like we do for the outsiders, there's kind of a getting to know you, a dyad introduction is what we call it. The same thing has to happen for the insiders. So I know that in Spencer's case and a few other cases, since release, members of the class have stayed in touch with one another from the insider's standpoint, and that's been really helpful. But let's hear from some others about what the insider's perspective on the class has been.
I can make a comment.
Yes.
Just to add a quick tidbit to what I just mentioned, if you take everything I said about the project that Spencer and I did together, and then I'd also like to share a quick anecdote. On the last, I believe it was either the second to last or the last day of class, I had probably I almost wanted to cry. It was an incredible experience. On our last, I noticed very quickly when we started the course that there was a piano inside the facility. And I knew over the course of time, and Dr. Ball was so nice, she actually brought in a guitar for Spencer to play in the facility with us and for us. So that was wonderful. If you combine, and on the last day of class, we got to play a song together called Rainy Day Lament inside the jail in front of a bunch of the students. And then a few other students played some songs together while Spencer was playing the guitar, and they sung together. And so I think, speaking from at least what I saw, the look on Spencer and I's face was just, I mean, the biggest smile you could ever possibly imagine. And you combine those kinds of experiences with the academic and rigorously academic experiences that we had as working together. And I think that the insiders would agree with us, although there aren't any, many in here to speak today, that the class was not only just academically engaging, but emotionally and philosophically and sociologically engaging on so many levels because of little anecdotes like that.
Following up on that, in our semester, we were very hesitant of breaking any rules. We didn't want the program to get shut down. And with it being the first semester, we really wanted to make a good impression to help the program continue at Roanoke College. And just as us outsiders are very hesitant, very nervous about what the class holds for us, the insiders feel the same way. And I can recall there was a little group of us, and at first we were so nervous. Of course, me being a sophomore at the time and on the younger side, no criminal justice background, I was nervous being in the course. And many of the insiders came from that same background with not a lot of experience with that academic subject. And over time, we really grew together as friends even. And even though we didn't have contact in and outside of the jail, we learned how interconnected our lives are. With WRKE, they have access to that. And one of them recognized that I had a radio show and they were requesting songs, and we would play them on the day and then come back and they're like, yeah, thank you for playing that song. And even though we weren't in direct contact, it was a really great sort of relationship. And just seeing that even if we are on the outside and they're on the inside, we do have that interconnectedness, and it can go further into a sort of professional but personal relationship.
So I think we'll do in the next question, but Christine, you, thank you for sharing that little anecdote about the radio station. That was not expected. That was just wonderful. One question is probably for Dr. Ball. Have there been courses that you've taught that just didn't transcend well to this type of course? Or have you felt that any type of course style or content or focus seems to work well?
So I will say that every course, of course, there are, bumps along the way, right? And Richard can attest to probably my first course wasn't perhaps my best. But I think that all of the material that I have presented has worked really nicely because of the subject matter. I started with the topic of sociology of the families as my first course because I wanted something that didn't have to do with criminal justice. I wanted something that had to do with something we all can relate to, and that is the idea of family, however it is that we define it, right? And then from there, I moved into more critical criminal justice or criminology topics as I got to know the facility, its inhabitants, and the staff better. I will share, though, 2 examples of complications in course content and bringing groups together. A colleague of mine, not at Roanoke, but elsewhere, wanted to teach for the program, and everything seemed to go great, except that everyone, and you probably notice, and I'll just say that if it's a female prison, I bring in both male and female students, and I try to diversify the group in terms of age, whether they're traditional or non-traditional students. So for example, maybe a veteran who's come back to college to finish their education, diversification in terms of socioeconomic status, major, college class standing, and so forth. So my colleague brought in a group of 10 outside students who were all white middle-class females. And this was brought into a group of 10 mostly non-white, mostly non-middle class female insiders. And things were rocky. And I heard secondhand, this was not my class, I visited it once, but I heard secondhand that their tension was building because of the differences in the groups and because of this dichotomous feel to the class. But then it was able to be turned into a teachable moment when both groups, feeling this tension, confronted it on, I think, the 4th or 5th class and simply said, can we just clear the air? Something doesn't feel quite right here. And then they talked about it. They were able, this was a psychology class, they were able to apply psychological theories to the various ways that they were experiencing the moment. And I attended the final presentation, and it ended on a really beautiful note. The second example I'll share is speaking with a colleague of mine who was interested in teaching for the program. And I explained, you're going to be able to teach anywhere after teaching for this program, because you don't know if you're going to have a classroom. You may be teaching, Richard probably remembers, we were teaching in a garage, kind of a barn in the back of a facility. We've taught in a hallway. We've taught in a room that was designed for no more than 10 people, but somehow we fit 25 people at one point into the room. And this colleague said, oh, but so where's the PowerPoint projector and the screen and the computer? And I said, oh, well, we don't do that. I just teach. I teach using a chalkboard or a piece of poster board or what have you. And he said, but I would have to use my PowerPoint slides and notes, and I've got this all designed. And I said, well, in order to enter this experience, you may have to rethink how you communicate your course content. And so I think that, people who might be listening, who are interested in maybe teaching for this sort of program or in this sort of setting, if they go into it with kind of a flexible standpoint and creativity, and also attending classes taught by colleagues who are already doing it is essential, simply to see how do they do it, to kind of rethink that maybe the staler ways that we've been teaching in a traditional classroom setting. And I found that this semester, this has really helped me because we haven't been in class. So I've been holding what I call conversation hours outside on the Krager patio for 3 hours a week for students who are on campus and able to drop by. There's no PowerPoint, there's no chalkboard. It's just us talking under a big umbrella, even in rainstorms. So that's been something that's been quite special. So.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ball. We have one comment from Marie Haynes. It says, hello, I'm Marie Haynes, and I serve with a prison ministry called Kairos, and many of the women are taking college classes. So she wanted to share that comment. I don't know if you wanted to speak to any gender difference in your history of teaching these courses through this program.
Yeah, I'd like to, and I think maybe Richard could give his perspective, having worked in a female facility, and then maybe the others could speak to their experiences in the male facility of Roanoke County Jail. One thing related to the comment, and thank you for that, is that there's quite a lot of academic programming. It differs from state to state. But there's quite a lot of academic content offered in correctional facilities, more progressive states especially, but it rarely involves traditional college students coming into the facility on a regular basis. But when at facilities that I've taught previously, many of the women at MCI Framingham, for example, this was not the first college class they had taken, and it definitely wasn't the last, and they were pursuing their 4-year degree through Boston University. And just one of them I heard from a month ago upon her release, and her ability to, or wasn't a month ago, I guess it was the spring when things were semi-normal, and her ability to attend her graduation ceremony and how beautiful that was. In terms of what I've noticed having taught in both settings, the female facilities, there tends to be a lot more interpersonal, both communication and tension amongst students in the class. Whereas, and this could just simply be the design and how people are housed in different pods in the facility. Whereas the male students seem to be a little bit more solitary and to themselves and focused on the course content, less on interpersonal, some might say drama that comes out during the course. But Richard, what did you notice?
I mean, I obviously can't compare them because I was only at MCI Framingham. But I don't know. I can't really compare them, or I don't really have anything else to add, I don't think.
So Dr. Ball, insiders can take a course more than once, or can sign up more than once, I guess is a better way to say it.
Yes, they can take more than one class. There's typically only one offered per semester. But I do know of insiders who are able to take at the same time several classes if being offered in other settings that I'm aware of. But yes, as long as the class is a different class, they can't receive credit twice for taking the same class. Just as a Roanoke College student could take sociology of the family, and then they could take criminology with me. 2 different semesters, they're able to do that as well.
So we have a question from Mary Keene. Her question is there a particular insider that is more memorable than the others, such as being released and deemed a success story?
Well, I would say that I have quite a few memorable success stories. Now, this might be a function of who is attracted from an insider standpoint. This might be a function of who's attracted to the program in the first place, right? And takes the initiative and expresses an interest in it and sticks with it from beginning to end. We do have insiders who begin the class and then for whatever reason, they don't finish the class. We also have outsiders that happens to, as we do with any kind of traditional campus class. But I would say that Spencer is a great success story. He's been released and has been gainfully employed ever since his release, and is getting great reviews and promotions at work. So he's a great success story. I have others who have gone on to take community college classes, have expressed an interest at 4-year degrees, have asked for letters of recommendation for me for their college applications. But many of the students are highly memorable for their personalities that shone through during our course meetings.
So a question that came in via email would be good to ask the students, I think. So did any of you ever get any pushback from your families, your friends, when you told them you were going to be going inside the jail and participating in such a course? Or what was your reaction from your families, if any?
So I'll start for this question. So my dad actually worked in law enforcement when I was growing up. And I think people have this idea that people in law enforcement think, oh, someone's in jail, like that's kind of where they're meant to stay. That's where they need to be. And that, once you're in jail, you don't really have a chance at a good job or getting a college degree and things like that. So it was really great actually to have such support from my dad, and he was really interested in me taking the class, and we weren't able to work out the schedule to have him come in and visit just due to background checks and things like that. But he did get to meet with Dr. Ball and I after class one day, and he was really interested, and he liked being able to tell his friends about what I was doing. And I think that was something that was really great and kind of unexpected from him. And I just thought that was a really nice way for us to bond about something different, to be able to talk about that experience and kind of my experience going into a jail versus what he's experienced through his work in the past.
Anyone else?
I know that when sorry.
Good.
When I would tell people I was doing that, I know some people were like, oh, is that dangerous? And then when they found out it was a women's prison, they'd be like, oh, it's not dangerous then. Like, it's like, as the idea of, oh, men are violent, women can't be, But what was funny was the person who actually led the education thing at that prison was actually there's more incidents here than at the male institution that she had taught at before. But no, that was just a funny anecdote I wanted to share.
I was going to share something similar along the lines of not so much my family, but more so my friends and just other students at Roanoke College who would ask me about the program, and they'd be like, why do you want to go sit in a jail for 3 hours on a Friday? Like Dr. Ball was saying, it's a big commitment, but it's definitely worth it. And I think that me being able to share my experience with them has actually opened their eyes a little bit and made them lean towards wanting to take the program or just be involved in some way and get more knowledge about, incarceration in general and pre-release programs and things like that. So I think that not so much pushback, just more questions and concerns, not like you shouldn't do this, but kind of along the lines of, I need to know more.
I can say that when I first took the course, I had some friends in it as well, so I didn't really have a lot of pushback from my friends or concerns. And I knew not to tell my mom until after I had started the course because after I did, her questions were mainly, what does that have to do with your studies? And is that safe? And of course, I assured her it was safe. It really was. And I did have some classmates from other areas of my studies wanting to know how that relates to IR. And eventually, I even had a friend ask me to review her application because she wanted to take an Inside Out course. So once you get over that initial kind of concern for the course, people do get interested in it, and there's not as much pushback.
Yeah, and I'll say, I've heard that same question. Aren't you scared? Isn't this, a scary experience in the hallways of the facility? No, absolutely not. There are correctional officers surrounding us. Everybody's on camera. Everybody, in some facilities, you come and you have a alarm on your body and a plug you can pull if you feel in danger, and it immediately sets off a very loud alarm. They would often go off when we didn't intend them to, and then staff would come rushing to save us, but there was really no crisis whatsoever. So if you imagine being surveilled constantly, you are under the eyes of many in that experience. So I never have felt unsafe. There at one facility, there was a dog program where the inmates or the insiders were training dogs. And I think if anything, maybe, once a large dog felt threatening or what have you, but that would be about it. So.
And like the insider students, they love the opportunity to be able to do this. They see, well, from what I heard of other, experiences in other places, like they're going to be very protective and very, care, they see you as one of them in some ways, or I don't know if that's a good way to express it, but.
Yeah, but they're protective of the experience, and they understand that the way the correctional facility frames it is this is a privilege for them to be able to take the class. And unfortunately, it's often something that's taken away from them if there is a behavioral infraction outside of the class. And we have had incidences such as that. Contraband was found on a person, and the first thing to go was their college class. And that made me really sad that decision was made, but it wasn't in my control.
So I think a final question kind of is a merging of two different questions, one that we have via YouTube and another via email. And it could be something, Dr. Ball, you can answer, or any of the students, but just kind of what changed for you from the moment you signed up, what your expectations were, and then how were they different? Was there anything that was pivotal in that particular shift, or was it just what you expected?
So I'd love to hear from the students on that one. I'll just briefly say I learned to be an incredibly flexible, patient, and creative instructor, and I encourage all faculty to take part in this experience for that very reason. It'll strengthen you as a teacher.
So I'd like to kick this one off. So I never really had the, I'm scared to go into the jail. I'm super stoked about this from the get-go. But what I didn't really expect, and my kind of pivotal moment for me, was taking the time to really get to know these guys at the Roanoke County Jail, and just, having that experience with them and feeling like I had a personal connection with them, that we were able to talk about things like not even class related. Sometimes we had a little bit of downtime and we could talk about, their friends or their family or their life outside of jail before they were there. And I think that gave me the opportunity to take a step back in a way and have it be so much more than just an educational experience. And I think that that's what this program is really about. And it kind of gives you the ability gives you the ability to interact with these insiders in a way that sheds a whole new light on incarceration and the people that are there.
I guess following off of that, there was another course I actually took this semester about storytelling and really recentering the human experience and recognizing that behind each individual, even on the most basic of interactions, that's a person with a history, a past, their own family, and just taking out the academic aspect of the Inside Out program, I can see that same message being driven. And like Gwen was saying, you do get to know these people, and the insiders are just, they can be the sweetest people. And I can't speak for other college students, but I take courses at Roanoke College, and their classmates I never talk to, don't meet, don't interact with, even in my major courses where it's even smaller. Whereas I knew each one of the insiders' names, I knew details about them as a person. There were times when some of them brought in their personal artwork to share us. One brought in pictures of his daughter and was just showing them off like she's my pride and joy. And, you know, like you do have a lot of downtime in those 3 hours, and you can have those moments to truly bond with your classmates. And as you go through the program, they're not insiders and you're outsiders. You're just classmates at that point, and you're just people and friends, with the unfortunate fact that you only see each other once a week. But you do get back to that human experience of seeing each other, you know, behind as being a student. And it's really great, especially when we get to the final presentation and you're just working with each other to pull off such an amazing experience for not even just the students and the correctional staff, but also sometimes the board of the college comes down, and at first you're worried about impressing them, but then you just end up having a good time and working with each other and wanting to just have everything go well. And it's really wonderful.
Well, this was really great. Our time is up. It's 1 o'clock, and I want to express my gratitude to Dr. Ball and each of the other participants here for sharing so much about this amazing and impactful program, not only for the insiders, but the outsiders, as I gather. I want to thank everyone who is joining us via YouTube and watching us today. We invite you back for our very last NOKELive event of 2020. It's Thursday evening at 7 o'clock. We will be joined by Dr. Jeffrey Sandborg and learning all about the Roanoke College choirs. And I think there'll be some little music weaved in and out that we can enjoy in the evening. But we hope that you'll join us Thursday night at 7 o'clock. For more information, you can visit the roanoke.edu/alumni webpage. And there you will find more information on all of our events through the Alumni Association. So thank you all, and stay well, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.